Hey, today's kind of special. We get to have Mike Sparrow, Pastor Mike Sparrow, and Jacob Huckleberry, and they're representing the Family Care Network. So I've been telling you guys about this for weeks, but this is really exciting for me. This is a real gift to have these guys serving our Central Coast area on behalf of foster care youth and really wanting to partner not just with our county, but particularly with churches. And, the church, we represent the heart of God. And we're not, I know a lot of our nation has given up on the church, but I'm so thankful that you guys haven't given up on the church. Yeah, we got messiness, no doubt. Let's own it. Church, we're kind of weird church people. Let's own that. But God's not giving up on His church, and I just love that Family Care Network wants to partner with churches. So I'm really blessed by these guys reaching out, saying, Josh, we want to partner with churches. We want to see the church get envisioned for this thing of helping this thing move forward, getting kids off the streets, out of bad situations, and getting them in families. So it's really an honor to have these guys with us. I've been able to hang out with both these gentlemen, and just they're the real deal. They know the Lord. They serve the Lord. So it's really a pleasure to have them up here. Can you guys start making your way up here now? Pastor Mike, I think you're going to go first, and Jacob will go after. And I think Jacob's wife's here. Welcome, too. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Pastor Josh, for having us. Appreciate that, guy. You guys appreciate your pastor? Yeah, both of them. And I've known Pastor Randy and Ann for, I don't know. You came in 93? End of 93. I became lead pastor in 94 at Agape Church. And so right from the beginning, I think we started hanging out. And Pastor Randy was helping to coordinate the pastors' unity here on the coast. And we were working towards that in San Luis Obispo. And so we've had a close relationship, a close friendship, and it's such an honor to be at this church. I've been getting to know Pastor Josh over the last couple of years, and my twin brother, Pat, he pastors Equippers Church in Arroyo Grande, and his son, John, just took over a couple of years ago, about the same time you guys were going through transition, about the same time I was going through transition. I've stepped down as lead pastor of Agape Church. I started as a lead in 94, came as youth pastor in 86. But it was 2016, the Lord started dealing with me about this next season, next phase of ministry. I'd been doing mission stuff. I'd been working with our association as regional director, and the Lord spoke to me about stepping down. And so as I did, Jeff Bowers, our new lead pastor, so it freed me for community stuff. But Randy and I have talked about this whole thing about transition and what's next. And part of my what's next was to get more involved as a community liaison with Family Care Network. And I've been part of their board since 2000 and been on a community relations committee as well. I love their mission, so we want to share a little about that with you this morning and just stir your heart, hopefully, about some areas where you might be praying or personally want to get involved or know people to be great fits for the mission of what Family Care Network does. I just wanted to start, I guess if I could title my part of this message, I would title it The Cry. And have you ever just had to cry out to the Lord, like from the depths of your life, just saying, God, rescue me, deliver me? Anybody here? I was a mess when I got saved at 21. I was raised Roman Catholic and then drifted and did what a lot of people on the beach in Southern California did, got into all kinds of stuff. At 21, I was starting to burn out, and that's when I cried out to the Lord. It's a long story, just things got kind of crazy, family-wise and in personal situations, and He rescued me. And this is what Psalm 18:6 said, "But in my distress I cried out to the Lord. Yes, I prayed to my God for help. He heard from His sanctuary my cry to Him. It reached His ears." One of the first songs that we used to sing down in the Calvary Chapel days was out of Psalm 5. It says, "Give ear to my words, O Lord, and consider my meditation. Hearken unto the voice of my cry, my King and my God, for unto Thee will I pray. My voice shalt Thou hear in the morning." How many remember that song? Any old-timers? Yeah, there's a few of you around here. And that was one of the first hymns I ever learned because it was relatable to me. God heard my cry. And throughout ministry, there's times when He's made that so real that He still hears the cry of people's hearts, and particularly the cry of orphans, the people that are left destitute and desperate, the cry of widows. It was in about 2000 I met this man named Moni Mak. He's a Cambodian pastor, a church planner, apostolic leader. I met him through a spiritual father of mine, and A.L. Gill, and A.L. asked me to go to Cambodia with him to help do some pastor training. And so I did several trips to Cambodia, but in 2010, we were invited to do a conference there in Steve Moore and the Moore family. Steve was coming to the church here, and now they're in Oregon. Steve came with me, and after a week-long conference in Phnom Penh, the capital, Moni Mock and his wife Canary said, well, let's go down to the beach and relax. We're going to rest for a couple of days. And so we went to the beach and just hung out there. In the morning, we hired this fishing boat, maybe a 20, 25-foot fishing boat, to take us out to a reef to do some snorkel diving. And Pastor Moni's wife had never done that before, and so it was just amazing tropical fish, and we just had a blast listening to her giggle as she was seeing the fish for the first time. It was just a lot of fun. Lunch on the beach. We were going to go back this way to the harbor, but Pastor Moni said, let's go out to that fishing island that's about a couple miles out. Let's just go spy out the land, maybe for outreach. And so we motor out to this island, and we pull up on the beach, and we get out of the boat, and it's a fish house about as big as your storage shed there, except it was on stilts, and there was a bamboo porch on it. And as we're walking up, there's a mom. She looked maybe in her early 30s, and 3 little kids. But there was a young girl laying across the steps, and she kind of had a bandage on her head. And Pastor Moni and I get out, and he introduces us. And the first thing the lady says is, you can have her, but you can't have them. And so the initial thought was that we found out that this gal laying there was an orphan. This was her auntie. They were very, very desperate for money. The husband had gone fishing, and she was willing to traffic her niece that was here with a bandage on her head. We said, that's not why we're here. And we began to share the gospel with them, that we just share about Jesus. And the mom's heart started opening up, and then we asked if we could pray for the young girl that was laying there. We began to pray for her, and all of a sudden she kind of started pepping up, and we got to share for a few minutes sitting down, and they started opening up, and Moni was explaining Jesus, and then we gave them some money that was probably $30, which was maybe at least a month's wage to them. And at the end, we were just laughing and having fun. This little girl was up, and she was talking, and it was just an amazing God moment. In the end, we're in a circle praying, but the thing that got me the most, the orphan girl said that morning she was laying there on the porch looking out in the ocean, and she just was saying these simple thoughts. I wish that man would come back that had those words about Jesus. And 6 months before, a missionary from French-Canadian missionary had showed up and shared the gospel with them. And the orphan girl was there this morning asking and saying, I wish that man would come back with those words, and we showed up. And I'm getting back in the boat, and I'm just rocked by God's presence, thinking, God, did you mess with our day? Did you mess with our calendar because of the cry of an orphan girl? Did you kind of change the plan, Lord, and set this whole thing up? And I had an overwhelming sense that he did. An overwhelming sense that he hears the cries of people, desperate people, hurting people, people that need him, people that need to know him. And I guess that's why we're here this morning. I think as well about the gospel story in Mark chapter 5. You're probably familiar with it. It's the story of the Gadarene, the crazy guy living amongst the tombs. If you unpack that story, I'll just do it briefly, but Jesus and his team was on the west side of the lake, the Sea of Galilee, and that was the Hebrew side, Hebrew culture. And then one afternoon, Jesus says, we're going on a field trip, guys, jump in the boat. And so they do, and they're traveling overnight, and that's when the storm comes, and they're freaking out, and Jesus is sleeping, and he speaks to the storm, and it calms down. And then the next verse, they meet this guy, and he's tormented, and he's troubled, and he's crying out to Jesus, why have you come to torment me? And Jesus has this encounter with him where he falls down, and Jesus says, what's your name? And he said, my name's Legion, for we're many. Now, some biblical historians say this was on the east side of that Sea of Galilee was the Decapolis, the 10 cities there that was conquered by Alexander the Great, and he put some of his colonels and generals in charge on that side, but they served fertility gods. They had a totally different religion there. And some said that on that side they had scapegoats in some of these towns. And just like in Hebrew culture, they would, at Days of Atonement, they would lay their hands, the priests would, on the goat and lay the sins of the people on the goat and chase it in the wilderness. in this fertility culture, they did that to people. The sins of the village was put on this guy that was demonically tormented. That's how he got that way. In ritual, they would place sins on him, and he's driven thinking that his lot in life is to bear the sins of the people. His lot in life is to be the excuse for why things go wrong in the village. And so the blame and the shame was placed upon him. And so the torment increases. When your identity becomes that I'm the outcast, when your identity becomes it's my fault things go wrong. He began to live in torment and in isolation. And Scripture said he was demonized to the point when he cried out to Jesus. The true Messiah comes to flex and to deliver him. The pig story, they said on that side, the fertility gods, they sacrificed pigs to the fertility gods. So Jesus shows up, casts the demons in their sacrifices and sends them in the lake. And flexes as the true Messiah and delivers that guy. And then he cries out, Lord, take me with you. Don't leave me behind. And he says, no, you stay and tell of the good things that God has done. And Jesus gets back in the boat and he takes off. And the next time we read about that region in Scripture, 5,000 people show up because of this evangelist guy that got delivered, and he's got to feed them in the wilderness. And so saying all that, what's the connection? Scripture says that guy was crying out day and night. It's about 8 to 10 miles across that lake. And I don't know if Jesus could hear, you can maybe hear a mile or 2 miles across water, but I don't know if it was a physical thing, but Jesus heard the guys cry in here. And he said, guys, we're going to the other side. He takes them to the other side. He sets them free. He gets back in the boat and goes home. And again, I read this and I think, is this the kind of God that you are? That you will rescue a person in their cry, in their desperation, in their frustration? Do you hear that cry, Lord, and respond like that? And I believe yes. How about you? Do you believe He hears your cry? Do you believe He hears the cry of your kids and your grandkids? I remember Graham Cook, a Christian author and speaker. He was sitting in the mall one day, and he's just sitting there, biding time. His wife's shopping, and he said he heard the Lord's voice. And the Lord says, do you want to hear what I hear? And he said, yeah, sure. He said a few minutes later, here comes this little girl holding the hands of this guy walking by. And when they go in front of him, he hears this little voice say, I hope he won't abuse me tonight. I hope this is the night he will stop and he won't abuse me. And so I believe the Lord hears the cries behind these four walls where there's abuse, where there's addiction, where there's marriage issues. I believe it can look nice on the outside, but even from the sound of my voice today, there's issues going on around us in the neighborhood where there's people crying out for help. And the Lord wants to answer their cry. But look at your neighbor and say, He wants to use us. Go ahead, tell him that. He wants to use us in the rescue. Do you believe that you're supposed to be part of the rescue? Anybody in here believe that or out here this morning? All right. Well, Psalm 113, verse 5 and 9 says, who can be compared with the Lord our God? Who is enthroned on high? He stoops to look down on heaven and on earth. He lifts the poor from the dust and the needy from the garbage dump. He sets them among princes, even the princes of his own people. He gives the childless woman a family, making her a happy mother. Oh, praise the Lord. So that's the reason we're here this morning, is to share with you that and many of you are probably aware of the need for fostering and the need for taking care of kids in the community. Some of you might be engaged in that at different levels now. Maybe you're helping out with kids clubs. I know there's people going into the schools and serving in different capacities at the schools. And some of you maybe have been involved fostering before. But at any given time, from Santa Barbara up to San Miguel, there's probably 400 or so children that have some kind of need, whether it's from abuse in the home or addiction in the home, or sometimes there's a death in the home where a single parent passes away and this child finds himself in times of crises that needs a loving family and a caring family to come alongside and support. There's other ways to get involved. Sometimes it's just an overnight situation where the police department's called and and there's some things happening at home, and they just need a place to put the kids for a couple nights or just a couple days where they contact relatives or family to come in and provide the support. There's many things that we can do as a church community to help lift the loads of kids and to be caregivers and encouragers to young lives. How many had an encourager in your life? Somebody that stood behind you and was for you? And two stories from pastoring. One of them's Tim Huckleberry, a good friend of mine. He helps lead worship at a church on the Central Coast. And he grew up in a healthy home. And he said when he was young, he ran cross country and he got pretty good at it. And he was running in Florida in a contest. And his dad brought his car down on Daytona Beach. And so as Tim ran, his dad was driving next to him, said, "Come on, Tim, you can do it. You can finish the race." Said that was the fastest time he ever got because his dad was encouraging him next door. And then there's another guy named Chris, came out here from New Jersey to get a job, and his wife was already living out here. They were separated, and I became friends with Chris, and Chris's story was far different. He said in New Jersey he was breaking records in high school in athletics and in sports, and he said I was doing really good, but he told me, "Mike, you know what? My dad never came to one of my events." And I would tell my dad my time, and I'd tell my dad what I did, and he said it was never enough. My dad always had some kind of a comment or criticism that I could have done something better or different or faster. And Chris had this orphan spirit where he was restless and didn't connect, and just somehow there was this restlessness that was always in him. He's kind of a wanderer, having a hard time even committing to his family. And that orphan spirit that says, you know, I can't trust anybody, they're going to abandon me. I don't think anybody likes me. Like the Gadarene, I'm getting blamed for things that are happening in the family, and they began to live kind of in isolation. They live differently because of the orphan spirit that's in them. Jesus wants to heal that and deliver them and set them in a family. Do you believe that? Scripture says he sets the solitary in families. He sets them in relationships where they can receive nurturing and support and encouragement. And psychologists would say every child needs three things, really. They need security. They need to be in a place of safety where they feel safe and they can just breathe. They can trust. They don't have to be looking over their shoulder and wondering what's going to happen to me or who's going to hurt me. They need that security. They need unconditional love. The feeling that somebody is thinking about me. Psychologists say, and sociologists will say, just the idea that as a child grows older and moves on to high school or college, just the idea that they could call somebody and say, "Guess what? I got my first job." And somebody could say, "Good, that's so exciting, you got your first job." Just somebody that they can call and say, "You know what? I finished my midterms and now I'm going on to the next quarter." And somebody says to them, "Oh, we're so proud of you that you're moving forward." Just that encouragement makes a huge difference as far as success financially, but institutional-wise. As they interview kids that are in prison and in institutions, that question is, you know, kind of where'd your path go and how come you're here? A lot of them, the answer is, just felt like nobody cared and nobody was with me and nobody supported me. And I don't know about you, but I have a Heavenly Father that cares immensely about me now. Cares immensely about you. Cares about your well-being and your future and what He has for you. I remember at 23 years old, I was at San Diego State. I was living in Pacific Beach, and I got that phone call at 3 in the morning. It was my friend Tom. Said, "Your sister Judy just called," and I was a new believer, maybe a year and a half old in the Lord, and he said, "Your sister Judy just called. Your dad has had a heart attack, and he's in the hospital, and Mike, they're not sure if he's going to live, and so I'm going to come down and get you and bring you home." And so I remember walking around my neighborhood and praying and talking to God just about how life would be without my father. And it was one of the first times I heard God's voice so distinctly. He said this, "Mike, I'll be your father. I'll be your father." And I found that to be true. Romans 8, Scripture says that God has given us a spirit of adoption, whereby we cry out, "Abba, Father." I think Pastor Josh was saying that in worship when we just lift up our hands and say, "Abba, Father." Abba, Father. God wants to be a father to us. But not only that, He wants to use us to help ensure and come along around other people that they would know that they're loved and they're cared for. And I guess that's kind of our mission this morning, is to try and encourage us as a church community just to not look at what's happening as far as church growth and the positive, awesome things we're doing about connecting just for fellowship and for community and for events and for ourselves building up and edification, but to look in the community and say, you know, within a very short distance of where we're sitting this morning, there's kids that need some help. There's families that need some encouragement. There's families that need strengthening. Family Care Network has a wraparound program where they come and they, instead of taking kids out of the home, they say, we want to help build a healthy team in this home around the children. And we want them to stay in this home. And we want relationships to get healthy. And we want families to communicate and learn how to thrive together. There's all kinds of places where people can be part of those teams and fit in to be part of the support system. In some churches, one family says, hey, we believe we're supposed to foster. And other families say, we're not in a place with our household or our time to be able to foster, but we want you to know we're with you. And if you need help, we'll drive your kids to soccer if you have to spend time with the foster kids. Or we'll do respite care. We'll go through just a little background check and some training, and we'll be able to come in behind you and help you with that. And I'm going to turn it over to Jacob, and he's going to be able to explain in more detail the how-tos. I just want to encourage us to allow the Lord to just work in our hearts. It says in the last two verses of the Old Testament in Malachi chapter 4, it says, before the Lord's return, He's going to turn the hearts of the fathers towards the children and the children towards the fathers. There's going to be a healing of families that God's going to endorse and God's going to be behind before He returns. I want to be part of the healing of families. How about you? Anybody here want to say, I want to be part of that. I want to pray into that. I want to be used that way. And with that, go ahead, Jacob.
Hey guys, I'm Jacob. I'm with Family Care Network. I've been there for about 6 months or so. And before that, I was working at Mountain Brook Church doing a lot of outreach ministries. But yeah, just really to echo a lot of what Mike was saying is, we believe in this. We believe that the redeemed believers are meant for this and that we're called to this. And it's really not because we have some awesome spiritual muscles, but it's because we know who our God is. And it's because we know what Jesus has done for us that we can go to the broken places of the world and say, hey, I know a God who healed me through that. And so we can be empowered through those places by the redemption of the gospel to go to these low places. And so what can happen is we can have kind of a savior complex, and that we can come into these situations and say, I'm gonna come and save these kids. But really, it's not that. What it is with these kids who have endured trauma and have endured being removed from their homes and their families, it's about picking up our cross. It's really about joining with Christ in His suffering and going with these kids into broken places. And it's about crawling into their stories with the cross on our back and healing with them in their brokenness. And that's kind of the beautiful place that we can come. And that's why foster care and adoption really is so beautiful, is because it's an outward display of the gospel. It's believers seeing the heart and the broken and kids in really challenging circumstances and stepping into it and saying, I want to heal with you through this. And so Mike and I, we truly believe that there are believers out there called to this specific mission of foster care and adoption, but really it's inclusive because we're all called as redeemed believers to get involved in some fashion with the marginalized, with the broken of the world. And so there's many ways to get involved, and Family Care Network has a lot of ways that we can get involved without specifically just being foster care and adoption. And one that I think is really beautiful and is overlooked is the church, and it's really supporting those in foster care. So if there is someone in the church community who is saying, I think foster care and adoption is for me, God has been calling me to do this for a long time, the church can rally around that, right? And so foster care really is the centerpiece of what we need. We need foster parents. But when the church comes around them, we talk a lot about foster parenting, but what about the prayer warriors? What about the person who's been praying for that foster parent every single day? Like, we can talk about those people, and we can talk about those who say, you know what, I'm going to give a meal to this family every week. Every week, I want to be determined to go and give them a meal. Or and this can really extend all the way, encouragement. I'm going to encourage them every time I see them on Sunday. I want to make sure that they know they're loved when they're going through the thick of foster care and they don't feel like they're making a difference. We need those people, and this can extend all the way up to respite care, which is what Mike was saying. And we've had some small groups who there's a family who's feeling called to foster care, and then there's another family who says, you know what, I'm going to become a respite foster parent with you, and then they can babysit for them, which is a really awesome support. So there are plenty of ways to really get involved into this, and there's really a space for everyone, and that's really what we want it to be. But besides just the calling of foster care, there's also mentorship. Mentorship is a huge, huge deal, and I'm going to pick on the males for a minute here. But we live in a pretty fatherless generation right now. We live in an era where fathers are dropping off, and fathers, even good fathers, aren't even necessarily really respected in our culture. And we desperately need fathers to the fatherless for men, because we have boys growing up without fathers in their household, and they don't know how to operate. They don't know how to function in society as a man because they've never been shown or modeled what it looks like to really have a father, to have a dad. And so mentorship is huge, especially for our kids in the system. There's this book by Jason Sowers it's called A Fatherless Generation. He had 3 mentors in his life. He grew up without a dad his whole entire life. And one took him fishing every single week. One took him hunting every single week. And the other one, they played games. They played games like every other week. He said those 3 mundane things that sound just so kind of just lame, changed the course of his life forever. And now he's a redeemed believer who loves the Lord and is now preaching on this crisis of fatherlessness in his life, with his life. And so there is a huge, huge need for mentors, especially for males, but also for the ladies. There's a real need for mothers too, for the girls out there in our system who need a strong role model of a woman in their life. Who knows what it means to be respected by males and men. We desperately need mentors. And so it doesn't have to be a big commitment of foster care, but also can be like 2 to 3 hours, I think, or maybe like 4 to 6 hours a month of just having contact with these kids in the system who need positive role models in their lives. Because most of what these kids have seen in the system that we work with at Family Care Network, all they know from adults is disappointment, is abuse, and abandonment. That's what they know. And so what they're expecting from adults is those 3 things. And so what they need is they need adults who are loved by the Lord and who know that they're loved by the Lord and can show love to others. And that's what these kids need. They need unconditional love even when they act out, even when they're acting out of a place of their trauma. When they have believers who can continually love on them and love them for who they are, that can help heal these kids in their lives and be a very positive influence for them. Another real need that we need, especially right now, is tutors. Tutors is a really big deal, especially for our kids. Our kids already struggle with school in our system, but now add COVID with distance learning, right? And now it's like tripled in being as bad because truancy is a really big thing right now. And also these kids just aren't motivated to get on their laptops and learn. So tutors is a really, really big deal. So if there's anyone who has some education training or is willing to tutor some of our kids who are in the system, that is really, really needed right now. And then there's other things too. There's service projects for some of our teens in independent living. When you're not in a good place mentally, you don't really want to take care of your house, right? When you're not doing good in here, your house isn't gonna look really nice. And so a lot of our teens, they really need help cleaning up just their house and small service projects like that. But so there's really plenty of ways to get involved with this. There really is space for everyone. And really above that, we need prayer. We need prayer really, really, really bad for these kids. And we need prayer that these people who do have a calling of foster care and adoption will take action to do this, because we truly need some believers in the system to help take part in redeeming these stories of these kids who have been handed nothing but brokenness and tragedy most of their lives. And yeah, we really need prayer. So with that said, yeah, Mike, did you wanna end it out? Yes, awesome.
Yeah.
So there's actually a lot of questions around foster care and adoption, and maybe people who've had some interactions with it. So yeah, Josh wanted to open up a little bit to maybe some questions that you guys might have involving foster care and adoption, or specifically with Family Care Network. So yeah, feel free to speak up, and we'd love to answer it the best that we can. My story. Like what kind of like Family Care Network or just where I came from? Yeah.
Brooke,
Oh yeah. So I actually grew up in Central Valley, so I'm like 2.5 hours east or northeast up here, and I moved here to the Central Coast about 2 years ago, and I actually came for Mountain Brook. So I came and I was employed at Mountain Brook for about 2 years doing outreach and video, and then after. I think it was June of 2020 is when I came over to Family Care Network. And so I got saved when I was about 17, and God just wrecked my life in a very amazing way. And ever since, I've just been serving him. And what's funny enough, I've actually been really called for foster care pretty much my entire life. I've always felt it. And to think that how God has led me actually here to Family Care Network is nothing of his sovereign grace and plan. And so it's pretty awesome that I get to advocate for it now today. And I feel really privileged. But yeah, it's a little bit about my story. But yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah.
So what does mentorship look like in this climate of COVID?
Good question. So COVID also obviously has thrown kind of a wrench in a lot of plans. So it's really up to you, so the volunteer, what they would like to get involved with. There is a lot of virtual meetings that can be done. So there can be virtual sessions where you get to meet your mentee and get to kind of develop a relationship. But for those who are comfortable, we will go to face-to-face contact. So we actually can go and be with these kids. What the stipulation is, we have to have masks or face shields, and that's just kind of state requirements. But eventually, once things kind of, I think, numbers decrease, then that obviously will be removed. But it's really up to the volunteer and what they're comfortable with doing. But yeah, totally. Yeah, we'll provide everything. Yeah. Totally. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah. Sorry, I should have repeated that. The question was about mentors, if they could see in them face to face or how to be virtual. So that was a great question. Yeah. Any others? Yeah.
So what is the first step just to open the door to find out where the person might fit in?
Yeah, I would say, honestly, and I was going to say this afterward, but really just the really easy follow-up, just come talk to me. I have a little table over here. I would love to get you plugged in and really come talk to us. We'd love to get to know you a little bit better. And then from there, I can kind of direct you into a good path. And then if you're really interested and you're saying, you know what, I feel called to foster care, a really easy place to start is just go online to Family Care Network or fcni.org. Or should I use this guy? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Is this guy on? Yeah. So that's a really easy first step. But yeah, come talk to us, and we'll get you plugged in and plugged into the right people. Yeah. Any others? Any other questions? Yeah.
For those families that are looking into foster care, can you tell us just a quick overview? I know you mentioned going to the website, but what are the expectations in terms of training?
Yeah, that's good.
Or
Good,
the training behind and getting approved with background and all of that information?
No, that is a great question. So the approval process can take anywhere, it says, from 3 months to 12 months. So this is a lengthy process, right? We have to really vet these parents and make sure that we're bringing in healthy adults to heal with kids who are broken, right? We can't get broken adults to heal broken kids. That's not what we're looking for. So that's a really good question. So Family Care Network, due to the nature of the kids that we work with, because we specialize in working with kids who have trauma and kids who have really broken past, and so we require 40 hours of training from an individual. So if it was a couple coming in and applying, that would multiply to around 80-ish hours. Actually, it might be even closer to 50 hours. It's somewhere it's a lot. All that to say, it's a lot. There's a lot of papers to sign. You would basically come to someone like me. We would do a little home orientation, and we would just tell you a lot about Family Care Network. You get to ask all the questions you want. After that, if you want to apply, you can apply. And then from there, it's really up to the family or to the individual how fast they want to go. We can bombard you with like, sign this, sign that, do this training, do that training, and you can go really fast. But most people, it's just hard because life gets in the way. And so on average, it takes someone about 6 months to get approved to be a foster parent around there.
Can I say just one thing with the training? When I came on as a liaison, I sat through some of the training, and it was on trauma care. And listening to that, I thought, man, every parent should go through some of this training before you even get to take a kid home. It just helps you as a person build understanding in your own relationships, dealing with broken kids that you might have in your family or just struggling kids. Helps you understand brain chemistry and what they're dealing with. And so some of it's just basic behavioral health that whether you go on fostering, it would benefit many of us just to have that kind of training for what we're doing. And as far as some of the training's video and some of it's live training, and so that's scheduled a bit on, it's kind of ongoing. So as a person or a family says we're interested, you get plugged in and the process begins. And so they'll guide you through, people will guide you through, make sure you have it.
Yeah. Thanks.
Just a quick follow-up to that. If you've gone through the adoption process and you've done that training, it's a different agency, but you've gone through that training and the background checks and all those things.
Sure.
Does any of that pull over or transfer over, or is it kind of a start fresh with Family Care Network?
That's a really good question. It would have to be basis by basis for sure. There is such a thing called portability. So if you were approved by like San Luis County or Santa Barbara County to be a foster parent, we can port over those trainings and applications and home studies. And that can totally cross over. But depending on when that was, if it was like 10 years ago, or if it was really far away, even if especially if it was in another state, we would probably have to start fresh. There might be some things that pull over, like CPR first aid. A lot of teachers have CPR first aid and stuff like that. Like we need that for being a foster parent. So a lot of that stuff can obviously transfer over. And so so it would be a case by case for sure. And so yeah, we could definitely talk more about that. Yeah. Yeah, good question.
What about being a mentor or a tutor? Do you have to go through that same type of training, or is it a lot faster?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know too much on the specifics of that, but it's definitely not as rigorous. I think it's you apply, there's a background check, like a small interview, and then they pretty much start matching you. I think it could take anywhere, I would say like a month, if that, maybe even less. So I don't know too much on that end because I deal with more foster care, but it way less rigorous. You can get plugged in pretty quickly. Yeah.
Right.
I did it through Family Care Network,
Oh, wow.
and it was like I went in for an interview. I think there was one in-person training with a group of other mentors, and then I got paired, I think, within a month.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. We should have had your testimony.
Should we ask her?
Yeah.
How did that go?
Yeah. Do you want to say a little bit?
I had a teenager, and I lived in Los Osos, and she was in Paso or Atascadero.
Okay.
And so it was a little bit challenging, and
Sure.
she also got really involved with her school and sports. And so we ended up, and then I had some family stuff, so I had to end up stopping. But it was cool just to kind of like interact, and she was in the wraparound program. So she was back with her parent.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so it was definitely neat to just
for like, I think she was like 15 or something,
Sure, yeah.
a young girl, to just be able to like love and support her. So
Yeah.
it was
awesome.
something it's been something I've been thinking about doing again anyways,
great.
but
Yeah, thanks for doing that.
Yeah, seriously, thank you. And that's a good, those are good, healthy things for her to get involved in, like school and extracurricular. And so that's a good transfer. Awesome.
Like, she didn't really need me.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, well, cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yes, but
Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else?
More questions.
Over here.
How do you differentiate your vision from the traditional foster government, godless kind of thing? I mean, how do you separate that, and what are your parameters, and how, could you address that?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. So they're obviously, this is owned by the government, right? And I talked about this a little bit with Josh, but so Christians actually started foster care. If you go way back in the history, there was this guy named Charles something, always forget his last name, who actually started this thing called an orphanage, like back in New York, because the kids were on the street immigrating to America. And he brought them into this orphanage, and then he did this thing called the orphan train, and he sent kids on a train, and people were adopting them all throughout America. And so Christians started orphan care. They literally did, because they were called to it, right? And then the government said, we could do it better. And then they took it, and it is what it is today, right? The system. And I mean, my vision is really to see redeemed believers and saints invading the government system called, CWS, Child Welfare Services, to where they are overwhelmed, to where it's not, oh my gosh, we have all these kids and no families. And now they're scraping from barrels and sending kids into homes with more kids, and now creating mini group homes, which the reason we're doing foster care is to get kids out of group homes, right? Institutionalized care is no place for a kid to grow up. It's for them to grow up in a family, right? God sets the lonely in families. And so my real vision is to see CWS overwhelmed with Christians to where they're like, oh my gosh, we have more families than kids. And now they're sending kids into homes with believers who now, with a cross on their backs, can take all that it really takes, the hard situation it is to welcome a kid with trauma into your home, and then you can walk with them in that. And hey, maybe they really heal. Maybe they seriously heal from their trauma, and you get to adopt that kid. Maybe that happens, and then next thing you know, you're part of this huge redemption plan of their story, right? Or maybe you don't. Maybe this kid maybe kind of heals, and then they get reunified with their family, but what you did is you just served. You opened your home and you served the broken, and that's what we're called to do. We're not called to manipulate these kids' stories to believe in Jesus. We're called to say open arms to our hearts and to our homes to say, hey, come in and I will love you no matter what. That's what we do. That's what Christians do. And so that's a really, really good question, what you're saying, because we have to come and look at foster care with the perspective of service and giving. We are giving of ourselves to these kids who are broken, and not looking to get out some perfect child, because that's really not what's going to happen. And so it's a good question, because it's basis by basis. But what I'm looking for is for redeemed believers to say, I'm willing to offer up my home and give to these kids. Yeah. And I believe that kids' lives will be changed by that. I don't think none of it would be done in vain if it was done through the lens of the gospel and how we've been served. Yeah. And so I truly believe that kids' lives would change, and it could eventually lead to opportunities of adoption and to guardianship, to where these kids' lives could be changed forever. Yeah. So whereas on a secular basis, right, for the government, it's just, hey, just take them into your home because we don't have room for them, right? Oh, the state doesn't want orphanages anymore. Let's just dump them into homes. Ultimately, I want to see believers coming in and say, I have a home, I have a heart, and I'm willing to love on this kid no matter what. Even if they do reunify with their bio families, I'm still going to be in their life, and I'm still going to send them texts, or I'm still going to call them and say, hey, I love you, and I know you're going through hard circumstances. I believe that believers are the answer. Yeah. in any way, shape, or form. And it can look a lot of different ways because every life is unique and every situation is unique. So that's an amazing question.
Could I just address a little piece of that too? Because when I started with them in 2000, and I had some people in our church who were a little concerned if I get involved, will the government try and be intervening in my family and telling me how to parent my kids? And that was a concern, kind of the separation of church and state. But a couple of things I've discovered as I've been involved, there's quite a few Christians already in the child welfare services that were interested. They recognize that Christians make some of the best foster parents because they're not doing it for money, they're not doing it for anything else, but it's missional for them. And so there has been a pretty supportive, collaborative view from the county working with Christian foster parents and other churches and their leadership. Grace Church has got a strong foster care program, and one of their children's pastors real connected to children's, I forget what the name of the title is. The director changed over, but it's not as conflicted or conflictual, I guess that's a word, as I thought it would be. That you'd always be challenged by what the county, how the county tries to make you raise kids. There is some training, there's some guidelines as far as discipline, spanking, those things that they just try and encourage different ways of discipline. So there might be times if you've raised kids that you would feel not as empowered to discipline like you want to, but within the framework of their training, I think parents would benefit by hearing and heeding the training. And I don't think you would find that you would be in conflict with their rules and that much. I think, as Jacob said, if we go in with the servant's heart, the loving heart, you can't make, especially like the teens, go to church with you. But they said when you do that as family activity and they're watching and they're seeing, that most of them would just want to do it for just to check it out, something different. It's really a connection with the hearts of the families that help direct the desires of the children. But there is some limits on what we can force them to do, and we got to be careful about our agenda when we bring them in. Like, this is the kid we're going to make you. God does the making. I think Pastor Josh said it. It's an inside job. We want to get them, introduce them, and let the Lord do the work in them.
Good question, good answers.
Yeah, good one. Yeah, anything else? Joseph?
I saw this hand go up first, sorry.
Well, first I want to say thank you for what you're doing. I had a foster sister for a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in 7th and 8th grade. I did not grow up in a Christian home, so it actually was very difficult.
Yeah.
Coming from a childhood perspective.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she brought drugs into the house, all kinds of stuff. And I think it's awesome that there's Christians being able to do the foster stuff. What do you do for parents do you come alongside parents if that does happen and help them?
You want to talk about the in-home support?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that's an amazing question. So Family Care Network, part of what we do is we provide services for families. So we are not the county. So the county CWS, they have their own foster care services, right? So Family Care Network is private. So we have our own services that we provide to families, and the county actually uses us for our services. So what we have is we have our own social workers. We have our own what's called RSs, or in-home counselors, which is actually what my wife does. And we have our own caseworkers and managers, all those sorts of things. And so we actually come alongside the families. I meant to bring this up, so I'm so glad you actually asked this question. Our part of our mission is we come alongside these families to make them successful. We don't expect to just drop off a kid and say, here you go, good luck, and then walk away. We match a kid as best with the profile of a parent. We call them, we say, hey, here's this kiddo, here's a little bit of information. Do you think it's a good fit? You have a yes or no to make on that. And then from there, you're provided directly with services, and you have a team. You literally have a team of people, and you meet every week, and you say, how are things going? What's successful? What's working? What's not working? And we actually provide in-home counselors or RSs to come and support you, to not only give you respite and give you rest, but also to make sure you're successful. It's a successful placement. Right. That's our goal. Our goal is to not abandon you, say, here's a kid, peace, we're too busy to work with you. Our goal is to say, here's a kid, how can we make you thrive? How can we make this family successful? And so that's part of our mission, and that's honestly why we've been around so long, is because our services are honestly so great. The county uses them because they're so good. And so that's part of our mission, is we really want to make sure our families are successful. Yeah. Great question.
That's good. Yeah. Jacob, maybe could you talk about the stipends, the financial side of it, what's available to parents to help that way?
Yeah, and so this is a kind of a common misconception in local foster care. Sometimes people get it confused with international adoptions. So international adoptions cost, somewhere of, tens of thousands of dollars, whereas foster care, local foster care, you're actually given monthly stipends to help with these kiddos and to help to nurture and help them in their lives. And so the government will actually give you assistance based on the program that you go into to help you financially with these kids for, clothes, food, education, whatever it need be to help you with these kiddos. So that there is assistance in that fashion financially. Yeah.
I think we have that in some of the brochures over there. It kind of spells that out, depending the level of need for the child that you would be working with. It's commensurate, the monthly stipends commensurate with the level of care that's needed.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is painting with too broad of a brush, but what does it look like for churches to adopt foster families and to support foster families? So like for the church to come around and support a family that has just adopted a teen or a young child there. Like what are the opportunities that we have to serve foster families?
Yeah. No, yeah, that's a great question, because I think that's the one I was kind of touching on it. I think it's what's overlooked. I think my goal is to not come here and say, hey, there's a need, you all need to feel it. My goal is to say, hey, I believe there's people called to this. Now let's support them. Let's wrap around them. And so exactly what you're saying, Joseph, is what it could look like is someone, an individual or a couple could go into foster care, say, hey, I believe we're called to do this. They go through the application process. And then what's happened sometimes is small groups, like if some churches have small groups, that whole small group will be dedicated and have a job for that foster family. And so like one family 1 week is like dedicated to saying, I'm going to bring a meal to them every week or every other week or whatever that might be. Or we're always going to be praying for this family every week we meet. Or just I'm going to make sure I'm sending them calls and texting them and see how they're doing every day. And another one, the highest level of commitment you could go to supporting them is respite care. And so get someone close to you to go through the process of becoming a foster parent, but just solely for respite care, which is kind of like a high-end trained babysitter. And so now you have someone close in proximity who's a trained, government licensed respite care parent, and now you can help them, if they need a break, you can come over, watch the kid, or like, hey, we need to drop them off just for a few hours. They can legally do that. And so that's what it can look like. And when families start to do that, you start to build a culture in a church of like, this is normal. Our church does foster care and adoption. Like that's what our church does. And so, and that's a beautiful thing when a church gets involved into that. But that's some of the ways.
There's a gal, Cynthia Fletcher, that works in foster care development for the county, and she's got a nonprofit called Faith in Motion, and with Facebook activity, Facebook connectivity, and trying to get resources for foster parents where maybe you need a stroller, maybe you need connections for resources for putting your kids in sports camps, those kind of things. There's some of that support out there already. And that would be the ultimate goal. Saddleback Church in Orange County, Rick Warren's church took on the foster care need in Orange County, figuring out with the number of kids in the county and the number of churches there are, to help develop and move that forward. And they got quite a bit of momentum, but I don't know recently the numbers or how that's all worked out. But it was like, hey, a united vision. Let's take this on. We can make a difference in our community. So it needs work, development, but the heart's there, and I think many people have said the same kind of things. Yeah. What if the church could do this? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It starts with us.
Good stuff. Oh, one over here.
Yes, I really appreciate what you're doing, and it just seems kind of ideal with the Christian organization working with the government. But I have a hesitation. I used to work with juvenile delinquents, and my biggest concern would be that children know their rights, and they're educated by the government to know them, and then they kind of throw them in your face. And so how do you deal with that? Because that would be like a huge hindrance for me, because they would know, they have an attorney, and so anything you do, they can use against you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You
want to start? I got a couple stories.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Yeah. This is an amazing question. This is real. This kind of falls in line with the government question, right? This is just where we're at, right? The government has taken control of this, and the foster youth have rights, and they're meant to protect these kids. So they come out of a place that these rights that they have are meant to protect them so that they're not put into compromising situations. Does it infringe on things that to even normalize the lives of these kids? It totally does. And so these kids don't have normal lives. These kids have attorneys. These kids have CASA workers. These kids have social workers. These kids can call any second and make a complaint about you to CCL, which is Community Care Licensing, and then they'll come and investigate you in your home. That is a real thing, and it actually happens. But what are those things that they're doing? So one, you could say it's an abuse of their rights, and it is. But also, what is it? These kids are traumatized, and they're used to adults abandoning them, and so they're gonna fast track their way to that process as fast as they can. And so what they're going to do is they're going to test you. They're going to say, all right, I'm going to make this complaint about this parent. I'm going to lie and say that they abused me, because they're waiting for you to actually abuse them, because that's what they know. And so these kids are testing to see how committed you are to them, and just in their head, they're expecting you to not love them through anything, right? Mm-hmm. And so this is their trauma coming out in a way, and it's hard. It's very, very hard. So this is a really good question, because that could test us, right? That's a real place. So then we have to ask ourselves, what do we do with that? And one, it can be hard. Bad situations can happen, and bad situations do happen in foster system. That's just a reality. There's not going to be a happy ending every time. There may be, and we pray for that. But how do we respond to that? And if we're operating in the best place of our relationship with our Father in heaven, we're going to respond out of love when people hate us. When Christians are oppressed, we respond by praying for them. We sing the song, right? This is how we fight our battles, right? We pray for these kids. We love on them no matter what, even when they're actively opposing us. And that's what we're called to do. And that is nothing short of being very, very, very difficult. So that's an amazing question. But you have a story?
Well,
I would just say that God is bigger. Thank you for confirming that He's bigger than the situation that in my eyes seemed impossible, because I've worked with kids. So thank you for showing me that. That He can do the miracles, and He does all the time.
Totally.
So thank you.
Yeah, of course. Good question.
Yeah, great question, because it's, like Jacob shared earlier, a lot of the kids are broken, and even one of the supervisors, Becca, that she works at Family Care, she's fostered quite a bit. And when I started training, she said, even my own foster child is called on me, CPS, just for something that seems sideways, because sometimes they use that over you. Mm-hmm. And but the good news is everybody, CPS, police department, they all know the game. They know what happens. They know what's real and what's not real. And so the idea that they're going to come in and arrest me or put something on my record, especially for trivial things, that they know what manipulation looks like, and that. So it's a rare thing that it ever turns or escalates into something that foster parents are legally, challenged with. And that's as well why we have in-home counselors and people that have gone through that and know how to help de-escalate that tension that would cause a phone call. And yeah. Anyway, it's real life. Just like our sister shared here, having a foster sister, bringing drugs and alcohol. Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes it's not. So yeah. Josh.
Oh, since you are coming to the church, okay, is there any restriction sharing your faith or leading that family to Christ?
Go ahead, you can start. And then
So no, so you be you, right? You be the true you. We have no hindrance to say, like, if a kid comes into us and say, like, hey, I love you because Jesus loves me. There's no hindrance on that. The only going back to the youth rights, so we can't force these kids to go to church. We can't force them, like, in our house we go to church on Sundays. Like, that can't happen. We just can't force these kids to go anywhere because legally they are not our kids yet. When adoptionship happens and guardianship happens, that's a totally different story because these kids legally become ours and we love them and they're our kids. They're in the family. But with fostering, we have to keep in mind that they aren't our kids, right? This is someone else's kids and we're caring for them temporarily. But yeah, there's no hindrance that you could say, hey, can I pray for you? And if they say yes, then you pray for them. You know, you could say, I believe in Jesus. There can be verses all over your walls. There's nothing really hindering that.
Yeah. You don't have to hide your faith. Young guy, Kurt, well, that's not his full name, but anyway, he came to our church. His uncle's in our church, and Kurt's his nephew, and Randy's the uncle. His brother was on heroin, and mom left, and so the uncle, Randy, started raising Kurt, and because his brother was totally dysfunctional, he started bringing him to church, and he got in the foster system. And at first, we just let our youth pastor know and the team, this guy was really aloof, didn't act like he wanted to be there. You would try and get him to comply and follow along, very slow to respond, and just kind of not overtly rebellious, but there's that independent rebelliousness in him, like he had been hurt and he was really distanced. Months go by little, his heart softens, starts doing youth events. Then an elderly family came along. Not in our church, but I was surprised that they wanted to take on a teenager. And they did. And now it's been months, and I'm talking to my friend Randy just a couple days ago and asked how Kurt's doing. They said he's excelling. He's got family there behind him. They're supportive of him. And he's connected, and he's excelling. And so a lot of it's patience, just loving them, being encouraging, knowing they got issues, giving them some space, not trying to be too confrontational or too religiously rigid, but nurture, love, support, and man, I watched God change this kid's heart, and he's excelling. So,
that's awesome. Yeah. I think there's one more over here, Josh, and then we can wrap it up. I know.
Yeah.
This is getting late for you guys.
Can you just share some of the numbers for our county as far as how many kids there are right now that need families and what like the age groups are, or are there a lot of sibling groups? What does that look like right now?
That's an amazing question. So right now in SLO County, there's approximately-ish 366 kids in SLO foster care. That doesn't mean that there's 366 kids waiting for a family. That means they're in the system. About-ish, half of them, maybe 40% of them are with kin. So that's good. So that means they're with aunt, they're with uncle, they're with, brother, sister who are older. And then about exactly half of them have siblings. And siblings are a big deal because siblings going with foster care to get in foster care together and keeping them together is integral to their healing. Waiting, that is a number that's ever changing. So kids that are waiting and actually like sitting there like, I don't have a home, maybe they're in a hotel, maybe a lot of them are in emergency shelter, which is where foster parents open up homes just for very temporarily, like maybe 1 to 2 days to weeks. That number is ever changing, but it could look, it's hard to throw numbers because it really changes literally every day. It could range from 20 to 40. And as far as age, great question. So there are kids who are given up at birth. Around in the year of 2019, there's about 20 kids given up at birth, and it kind of slowly goes down. until the age of 5 to lower numbers around like 5 or 6. And then the numbers slowly increase after 5. And we start to see the average age of kids coming into foster care around 9, around 8 to 9. And the numbers start to get even higher around 11. There's a real big need for kids around 10 to 11 and 12. This is crazy, crazy sad. I just learned this like 2 weeks ago. They start prepping kids who are 12 for independent living because a lot of people aren't willing to take in 12-year-olds. And to think of a 12-year-old being prepped to live on their own is just a very sad thing to me. And there is a really big need. And Family Care Network's dedicated to serving those kids in that area, kind of school-aged kids is what we call them. We're really looking to place like 11 to 12-year-olds. And we'll go up. We'll go up all the way to 18. There's been 17-year-olds who have been adopted in our agency. That's nothing short of possible. Around 16, they don't want to be in foster families because they don't want to be labeled as foster kids. They don't want parents telling them what to do. So at 16, they want to probably live on their own. Some don't. Some actually want to be adopted. So that's around roughly the numbers. They're ever changing. So it's hard to answer those questions. But that is a great question. But yeah.
I was going to say one more thing too. The laws have changed. It used to be at 18 that foster kids were sent out on their own, and now there's transitional housing, and the laws changed to allow children to be in families until they're even up to 23 if they're in college and they're moving forward. And so some of the need is for transitional housing. We have some apartments set up for that and where they've emancipated and they're on their own. But there's other times where they're looking for homes for these kids that are in the transitional age that still need support and want support. And education's paid for, and there's some other things that really help them to move forward. So that's an option too. Yeah.
But yeah, thank you guys so much for having us. Seriously, I'm so grateful for all of you guys. I'm really grateful for Josh and allowing all this time for us to share. But yeah, I think seriously could not thank you guys enough for all your time in this.
Yeah.
But yeah, please be prayerful. Be prayerful of these kids in the system and the families who are taking them in. But yeah, just some really quick follow up. If you guys are interested at all, it can start today. just come and talk to me. Come and talk to me. I'd love to get to know you. And there's many places to serve, or you could go online at fcni.org. But yeah, thanks guys.
That's great. Hey, why don't you do two things? Why don't you stand, and as you stand, start clapping your hands for these guys. They've done a great job. They've served us so well this morning. So. Yeah.
It's our privilege.
Really thankful. Thanks, gentlemen. Hey, I'm just reminded of the story where Jesus wants to feed 5,000 people, and the disciples said, I don't know how we can do it. We don't have anything to give them. I don't have much. I don't have much to offer. And Jesus pulled this little kid and said, hey, I want to teach him a lesson. Give me your lunch. Give me your fish and bread. I'm going to do a miracle. So if anyone's thinking, I just don't have much to offer God, I don't have a big house or a lot of time, or I'm too young, or I'm too old, whatever it is, I think it's just a moment to just kind of put this into God's hands. Don't take this too personal and make a decision right now. Keep this up here in the prayer spot where we can pray about this. Don't make this too practical yet. Let's keep it kind of ethereal, conceptual. Let's pray about this. Let's consider this. That's all what today was. It was a presentation. But I think faith enables us to keep it up here in the prayer spot. So I just can you guys just do that right here? It's up in the prayer spot. God, we just bless the seeds that have been sown this morning. We know, God, there's things that you've done in our hearts, even in the last 30 minutes that we're not aware of. But we know there's things in the next 5, 10, 15 years that will occur because of what started today we're not aware of. So we just offer that to you, God. We don't live a life of limit and scarcity, but God, in you we live a life of faith and abundance. And so, Father, we just thank you that there will be beautiful things that transpire in the future, represented by your church and your family, God. And we're excited about foster youth being in homes, healthy homes, homes not homes that are perfect, but homes where Jesus is winning, Jesus is working. So we just we even bless Family Care Network, bless these gentlemen and their big team at Family Care and SLO. We just pray that would go forward, God. And we just thank you for the vision. We pray it wouldn't just be a vision that's spoken, be a vision that's realized and is fully realized in the Central Coast. Jesus' wonderful name. Amen. Amen. Well, hey, God bless you. It's been a good morning. Thanks for being here. Make sure you say hi to someone, mingle, and share what God's doing in your life and how things are sitting with you and marinating. These guys are here for questions still, and they've got a table over here. Love you. God bless you.